Hi, it's Cassie. Welcome back to my YouTube channel and blog. Today I'm doing a 10-card, 1-kit video featuring the Simon Says Stamp May 2018 card kit. This is part 1 of a 2-part video series, and each video will have 5 cards. And while this kit is in fact sold out, Simon Says Stamp usually does a pretty good job of stocking just the individual items in the store. So let's get into the kit. First you saw some candy, and now we're seeing 2 mini hybrid ink cubes in Melon and Spring Rain. That is a 3x4 clear stamp called Take Heart by Simon Says Stamp. Then we have the Heart wafer die, has a shadow and the script. Then we have the Pink Fresh Studios Let Your Heart Decide epoxy heart stickers. We have a metallic ivory envelope by Simon Says Stamp. And then we have the Pink Fresh Studios Let Your Heart Decide paper pack, which is just gorgeous. And I gotta say, I did all 10 cards and I still have quite a bit of paper left. It's so pretty. I felt like I was kind of hoarding it a little bit, but oh my goodness, look at all the different pretty designs. So much going on there. These kits are always so worth the money. And once again, they did not disappoint this month. So pretty. And then we move on to the 3-pack of Simon Says Stamp folded card bases in the color Smoke, which I am really loving that. It's just a really pretty neutral. And then we have the 6x8 clear stamp called Everything Together by Simon Says Stamp. Then we have the Pink Fresh Studios Let Your Heart Decide puffy stickers. A lot of cute little stickers, and I have a lot left over. Then we have the idea sheet, which gives you all the information on the kit. And then we have some masking paper, which I apologize. I had intentions to use it and never did. And we have cardstocks in orange peel, Audrey blue, and ivory. So for card number 1, I grabbed my bone folder because I really wanted to get a good crease on that Smoke card base. And I decided to trim down each of those pattern papers to 1 1/4 inch by 5 1/4 inch. I'm going to put those 3 across the panel. I went with 2 fairly busy and then 1 pretty neutral pattern. And I adhere those with a tape runner, and I start by placing my outside pieces first to ensure the perfect placement in that center piece. That way you don't have it off center in between those 2 panels. And then I'm going to use the Everything Together stamp from Simon Says Stamp that came in the kit on some Nina White cardstock, and that measures 2.5 inches by 3 inches. And I put that in my mini Misty stamp positioner. And I conditioned the stamp with the oil in the palm of my hand. I don't know why it works, but it does. And then I inked it up with some Hickory Smoke Distress Oxide, and I'm going to stamp that down twice. That's the nice thing about the stamp positioner. Always get good coverage. And then I decided to stamp the stitch stamp on the top using some Lawn Fawn Wild Rose ink. I thought that ink went pretty well with the kit. I just wanted it to look like it came maybe out of a notebook or something. And so I wanted to stamp the solid flower, but I didn't care for the first one that I did, so I'm going to try it again here. And I ink the center with the corner of the Lawn Fawn Wild Rose ink pad, and I wipe away what I don't want. And I re-ink a little bit where I've maybe wiped off too much. And I'm using even a paper towel to kind of blot up some of it. And then I stamp that down. And then I'm using the Melon hybrid ink cube that came in the kit on the flower petals. And I'll stamp that down. And I like this a lot better. And then I fussy cut that off camera and stamped 2 hearts from the stamp around my sentiment, just because I wanted to have a little bit more of that ink brought in. I backed that with some foam tape, and then I mounted that to my base, and then I attached the flower with foam tape and a tape runner. And that's going to end up finishing off card number 1. card number 2, I wanted to use the zigzag stamp from that Everything Together stamp. And that's how I was going to make my background. So I grabbed my stamp platform and a piece of the Nina Solar White cardstock measuring 4 inches by 5 1/4. And I start out with some Lucky Clover Distress Oxide, which, come to find out, is actually very similar to the Spring Rain color in that Simon Says Stamp has brought in. So I didn't necessarily need to use it, but I like it. It's a little bit of a contrast. So I clean off my stamp and the platform in between each color, and I move the stamp up each time as well. And so I move on to the melon color next. That one came in the kit, and I have no rhyme or reason to how I'm putting these colors down. I'm just kind of grabbing what's in front of me, basically. And after this one, I'm going to use, I do the Versamark with some Simon Says Stamp Fine Detail Gold Embossing Powder. Then I do the Lawn Fawn Wild Rose, Stampin' Up's Not Quite Navy, again with Melon, then Spring Rain, and then I end off here with the Versamark along with that gold embossing powder again. I didn't think you wanted to see me stamp each color, so I'm just showing a few. And so I sprinkle my embossing powder all over the top of that, and then I'm going to melt that with my heat tool. And I'll incorporate other gold bits into this as well. To ensure that my cardstock matched, I'm using a mini ink blending tool and the Wild Rose ink to color my cardstock, because I want to use that panel with my heart wafer die. And I run that through with my little Sizzix Sidekick. And then I run the shadow through as well, just on some white cardstock. And I have plans for that one. I've done this before. I end up taking that shadow and I'm covering it with the Versamark ink. And then I'm going to cover that then with the gold embossing powder. And then I'm going to heat that with the heat tool. Once I'm happy with the coverage, watch it melt, because you know I love doing that. And then once it's cooled, I'm going to do the same thing again. I will repeat the steps of Versamark gold embossing powder and then heat it as well. Now I'm going to attach those with some liquid glue using my reverse tweezers. I will place that down. Those things are vital. I'm going to put that panel back into my mini Misty, because after doing all that stamping, the last thing I want to do is screw up the sentiment. So I use the Not Quite Navy ink along with the sentiment, and I stamp it a couple times just to ensure that I have a good coverage. And then I'll attach that panel to a mustard colored card base from my stash. That did not come in the kit, but I thought the mustard would go well. And then I attach the heart sentiment with that same multi-medium matte glue that I used earlier. It's a good strong adhesive. And then I'll finish off with embellishing my card. And to do that, I'm going to grab the epoxy heart stickers that come in the kit, as well as 2 of the puffy heart stickers. Just trying to decide which ones I want. And then that will end up finishing off card number 2. Card number 3 is a fairly quick card. It's mostly just stamping and a little bit of coloring. So I'm going to stamp with a white panel that measures 4 1/4 by 5 1/4. And I'm going to stamp both the leaves from this Everything Together set using the Spring Rain hybrid ink. And I'm trying to do a small scene building, very simple small scene building. I really like building scenes. It adds this whole new thing to card making. And so I'm just coming out from that corner. My idea was to use the hanging flower image that's in this set, and I want the hummingbird to be basically coming at the flowers. And so I use that hanging flower image, and I'm going to do what I call some partial inking. And so I start with the stem, and I use the Spring Rain ink on the stem. Just stamping that part, or inking that part. And then I go on to the Wild Rose, and then I use my finger to kind of block some of that off. And then I use the Melon Hybrid ink over the top of that. And then I just stamp it down. And I do that 3 times. Then I stamped the hummingbird in the using the Lawn Fawn Jet Black ink. And then I placed that panel inside my Mini Misty, and I stamped the sentiment using the same. And then I colored my hummingbird with Copics, which I'm not showing. I decided not to show that basically for the sake of time, because 5 cards in one video can get kind of lengthy. And I figure if you guys have any questions, you can always ask. And I will post the color numbers down below. So I popped up my panel with some foam tape to that orange peel card base. And then I decided to use some pink liquid pearls for some embellishment. No real rhyme or reason to how I'm putting them down, just trying to be visually aware of where I put them. And just put 3 down there at the bottom. 1 off there to the side. And that's going to actually finish off card number 3. Card number 4 ends up being a little bit more involved because I want to do some watercoloring. And so I have a piece of 110-pound Kansan XL watercolor paper, and I've put that in my stamp platform. And I'm going to stamp the teacup and the hummingbird from the Take Heart set. I started out trying to use that anti-static powder bag because originally I thought I was going to use my go-to, which was VersaFine Onyx Black ink, and then use clear embossing powder over the top of it. But I decided I wanted to try to use my Lawn Fawn Jet Black ink because it said it was waterproof, and so I thought, well, let's put it to the test. Here's the chance. Turns out it is waterproof. I would say the benefit of using the VersaFine Onyx Black ink and some clear embossing powder over using the Lawn Fawn is that the embossing powder gives you a little bit of an edge so that you don't have to worry so much about your colors running into each other if they're still wet. Now I am using my Mission watercolors and my number 4 silver watercolor brush. I love these watercolors. They're vibrant. They're just beautiful. They were a present from my husband for Christmas a couple years ago. So I love them. And I'm not super proficient in watercolor, but I do enjoy doing it. And as you can see, I'm just I put color down and then I let it dry, and then I intensify the color by going back over it a little bit, trying to add a little bit of shading. I'm not great at it. Maybe when I have a little bit more time, it'll be something that I can spend more time doing. But right now, with life being so crazy, I'm just kind of slapping watercolor down. Anyway, I'm enjoying it. I'll get better at it with time, but for now, this is what we got, people. I decided I wanted to have some ombre so that I can stick the heart wafer die through it. So I start out with some of that intense color, and I bring it down using some water, just kind of pull the color down with the water, and I heat set that off camera to let that dry a little quicker. And then I'm going to run that through my Sizzix Sidekick with that heart wafer die. And I stamp my sentiment on a scrap of cardstock, and I'll trim that down. And then I'm going to attach the heart script to its shadow with some liquid adhesive. Now, I don't really know if that's called its shadow, but that's what I'm calling it because that's what makes the most sense to me. So that's the heart script in my mind with the heart shadow. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong. After I have that adhered, it's going to be time to start assembling my card. And so I'm adhering that with some Tombow Mono Multi Glue right to the side there. And I had all my elements pretty much cut out using the different pattern papers in this kit, which are gorgeous, like I said before. And I had cut out some cardstock with one of my circle nestabilities. And I'm keeping that fairly flat, but I am going to use some foam tape on my teacup and my hummingbird. I want those to be popped up. And once I have them down, I'm going to trim down my sentiment panel, kind of once I realize or have it where I want it. Which I decide I want to trim it down just a little bit more. And I'll use the liquid glue, the Tombow, or no, not the Tombow Mono Multi. I'm using the Ranger glue there, multi-medium matte. And I'm going to use that same glue on the heart die. And I want to stamp on the inside, so I'm going to grab the teacup and the hummingbird again. And I'm going to use that Spring Rain ink. I'm not looking for a perfect stamp or stamped image because it's the inside, and I'll probably write over the top of that. But I'm just stamping that down pretty willy-nilly. And to finish off my card, I am going to grab one of the epoxy hearts and place it on my teacup. And that'll finish off card number 4. For card number 5, I wanted to do some ombre colored stamping. I'm not actually sure if that's what it's called, but I saw Christina Werner do it on her YouTube channel, and so I wanted to give it a try. So I'm placing my panel in my stamp platform because I just don't see how you can do this without a stamp platform, honestly. And I am conditioning my stamp with my hand there. And then I'm going to start out kind of stamping the top part of my image with some wild rose from Lawn Fawn. And I'm going to use a paper towel to kind of blot it up a little bit so that the edges look a little bit more organic. I think it might work a little bit better if you had like a semi-dry baby wipe, not a totally dry baby wipe, but a semi-dry baby wipe. I don't know, I'll have to do some experimentation, but this worked out just fine. I thought, okay, well, we're off to a start here. Let's just keep giving it a shot. So after the wild rose, I moved on to the melon hybrid ink. And I did the same thing, use the paper towel on the top edges and the bottom edges. And then I'm going to stamp that down. And I'll do it a couple different times because it doesn't stamp completely. Like I said, this is why I think you would have to do this with a stamp platform. I'm not sure how you could do it any other way. So yeah, but anyway, this, like I had said earlier in the video, is a 2-part series, and this is part 1. So if you've enjoyed this video, go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe so that you don't miss part 2, because that will be coming next week sometime, or depending on when I can get this thing published, it will be coming soon. So yeah, hit the like and subscribe and you'll see more. So now I'm moving on to the Spring Rain. And I'm doing the same thing where I blot a little bit and try and stamp that down. And I gotta tell you, I love the look. I'm gonna have to do this again. With big stamps like this, it's just, I mean, fun to give it a try. So I wanted to get some stitching all around the outside. And so I'm stamping that with the Hickory Smoke Distress Oxide ink. And just really liking how that's happening there. It's a very simple sentiment, but using those different colors the way that we did, we really just, you know, you kick it up a notch. And so I'll adhere that with my liquid glue. And then I'm going to grab those puffy stickers that are sitting there, and I'm just going to put one of the flowers and one of the leaf images. And that'll finish off card number 5. Cards 6 through 10 are pretty good too, so you got to come back, got to come check it out. So let's go ahead and take a look at cards 1 through 5. So here's card number 1. There is card number 2. Card number 3. Card number 4. And card number 5. Go ahead and put in the comments which one you liked the best. I would love to hear, and I will see you soon. Thanks for stopping by.